Welcome back to Motivation Library, everyone. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into a book that's, I think, going to spark some interesting conversations.
Yeah.
It's called Too Pretty to Pay Bills by She-Ra 7.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of this one.
Now, I know the title might sound a little provocative, but trust me, there's a lot to unpack here.
It's definitely provocative. But yeah, I think it's a good one to discuss, for sure. We're going to be exploring this idea of gold digging, not as like this taboo subject,
Right.
but, as a potential path to financial security and a better life, at least from the author's perspective.
Yeah, and, some of our listeners might be surprised that we're tackling this on Motivation Library.
For sure.
But, we're all about exploring different perspectives.
Right.
And approaches to success. And She-Ra 7 definitely has a unique take on how women can achieve their goals.
Absolutely. The book basically encourages women to approach dating with a clear vision of what they want to achieve, rather than just kind of hoping for love and commitment.
So instead of going in with expectations, you're going in with goals.
Exactly.
And a big part of that, according to She-Ra 7, is focusing on financial stability.
Huge part.
Yeah.
Yeah. She doesn't mince words about this at all.
Yeah.
One of her most striking statements, I think, in the whole book is that a woman is better off divorcing a wealthy man than a poor one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, her logic is that at least in the former scenario, you walk away with something.
Okay, that's definitely a bold statement.
Yeah.
So she's encouraging women to become material girls, as she calls them.
Yeah.
Is she suggesting that embracing materialism is the key to empowerment?
Well, she argues that men value what they invest in.
Okay.
So if a man is showering a woman with gifts and financial support, he's more likely to value and respect her.
Interesting.
And she connects this to traditional gender roles,
Okay.
suggesting that women are naturally receivers and men are givers.
That's an interesting perspective.
Right.
It almost sounds like she's suggesting that by playing into those traditional roles, women can actually gain leverage in a relationship. But what about those guys who believe in equality? Where do the 50-50 men fit into all of this?
50-50 men. She has a rather pointed response to that.
Okay.
She calls 50-50 men roommates. Basically, her view is that if you're splitting everything down the middle, you might as well be single and have a roommate instead of a romantic partner.
Wow.
Yeah. She even quips, a 50-50 man is a roommate. You can be single and have a roommate. I have to admit, that line made me chuckle.
Yes, she definitely has a way with words.
Mm-hmm.
But her advice goes beyond just finances. She's also pretty critical of what she calls pick-me chicks.
Oh, yeah. Big-time pick-me chicks are women who lower their standards and tolerate unacceptable behavior just to be in a relationship. And she sees this as stemming from low self-esteem and a lack of self-respect.
And that ties into another big part of the book, which is all about self-improvement.
Right. Looking good, smelling good, speaking well, dressing in a classy, sophisticated manner.
So it's not just about attracting wealthy men. It's about becoming the best version of yourself.
Yeah.
Which is a message I think we can all get behind.
Yep.
But then things get a bit more, shall we say, unconventional.
Yeah.
She introduces this age formula for choosing partners.
Uh-huh.
Essentially, she advises women to date men significantly older than themselves for financial stability.
Right.
Okay, I'm curious about this age formula. How does it actually work?
Well, she breaks it down by age groups, suggesting, for example, that women in their early 20s should date men in their 40s for longer-term relationships. Her reasoning is that younger men are often still figuring out their finances and might be more prone to playing games.
So she's targeting a certain level of established success and stability.
Right.
And she gets even more specific when it comes to where to meet these potential partners. No dive bars or college parties, I'm guessing.
You got it. She recommends frequenting upscale venues like fundraisers, art galleries, and business networking events.
Okay.
Places where you're more likely to encounter affluent and successful men.
Now, this is where things get really interesting and maybe a little controversial. She has some pretty strong opinions about intimacy and how women should approach it in their relationships.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly. She actually advocates for delaying intimacy as long as possible, essentially using it as a bargaining chip to increase her value.
Wow. Okay. So walk me through this. What's her rationale?
Well, she suggests that a man should invest a significant amount of money, specifically $3,000.
$3,000.
Yeah. On a woman before she even considers sleeping with him. And even then, she suggests drawing out the process through like seductive talk,
Okay.
tantalizing him with words and behavior without actually following through physically.
So it's about building anticipation and creating a sense of scarcity.
Exactly.
Almost like a game of strategy.
And she argues that this is just flipping the script on traditional dating dynamics.
Okay.
She points out how men often use money and attention to seduce women and suggests that women can utilize similar tactics to their advantage.
It's almost like she's saying, if men can play the game, so can women. But where do emotions fit into all of this? Does love even factor into her equation?
That's a great question, and it's where things get even more complex. She actually advises against getting emotionally invested too quickly.
Really? Why is that?
She believes that early emotional attachment can cloud your judgment and make you more likely to compromise your goals. She even compares relationships to financial investments.
Oh, wow.
Encouraging women to diversify their portfolios, so to speak.
So always have a backup plan, both emotionally and financially. That's a pretty pragmatic, if somewhat detached approach to relationships.
It is, and even when it comes to commitment, she suggests a calculated approach, encouraging women to create a clear vision of their desired future with a partner, linking this to the law of attraction and manifesting outcomes.
So even commitment becomes a strategic goal, not something to passively hope for. We've covered a lot of ground here, and I have to say this book is full of surprises.
It is, and while we're presenting Shira Seven's ideas here, we're not necessarily endorsing them.
Right. We're simply trying to understand a different perspective on relationships and financial security, even if it might be a bit unconventional.
Exactly. And it's up to each individual to decide whether these strategies resonate with them or not.
With that said, let's dive into some of the specific do's and don'ts that Shira 7 lays out in the book. She has some strong opinions about what women should and shouldn't do when it comes to attracting and dating successful men.
Okay, let's start with the don'ts.
Okay.
First and foremost, she's adamant about avoiding desperation.
I can see how that would be a major turnoff.
Exactly. She even says, you can't be afraid to lose a man. It's about projecting confidence and self-worth.
She also warns against playing by traditional dating rules, encouraging women to be just as assertive as men in going after what they want.
Right. And of course, we've already touched on this, but she strongly advises against getting emotionally attached too soon. She sees that as a recipe for heartbreak and bad decisions.
And let's not forget her big fat don't when it comes to 50-50 men.
Absolutely. Remember, she views those guys as glorified roommates. She encourages women to aim higher and seek partners who can provide financial stability.
And last but not least, she's not a fan of coffee dates.
Nope. She believes women are worth more than a cheap cup of joe.
Okay.
She wants them to expect to be treated to something more substantial.
So those are some of the key don'ts. What about the do's? What does she write? 7 recommend women do to attract successful men and achieve their goals.
Well, she places a lot of emphasis on appearance. She believes that looking your best is essential for attracting the right kind of man.
But she's not talking about being a supermodel, right?
No, she's realistic about that.
Yeah.
She acknowledges that not everyone is a 10 out of 10. But she stresses the importance of putting effort into your appearance and presenting yourself in the best possible light.
So it's about taking pride in yourself and projecting confidence through your appearance.
Exactly. She also talks about expanding your social circle and venturing into more affluent circles,
Right.
remembering her advice about frequenting upscale venues.
Right. Put yourself in the right places to meet the right people.
Exactly. She also encourages women to expect to get what they want.
Hmm.
It's about knowing your worth and not settling for less than you deserve.
And of course, she emphasizes entering relationships with clear goals, not vague expectations. Be strategic and intentional about what you want to achieve.
Absolutely. And this ties into another key, recognizing your inherent value. She wants women to see themselves as the prize, not as desperate damsels in distress.
So it's about having that unshakable self-confidence and knowing that you bring something valuable to the table.
Exactly. And finally, she emphasizes mastering the art of asking for what you want. Whether it's asking for financial support gifts or simply more attention and affection, it's about being assertive and communicating your needs clearly.
Those are some pretty strong do's and don'ts. This book is definitely thought-provoking, to say the least.
It certainly is. And even if some of her advice might seem a bit extreme or unconventional, I think there are some valuable takeaways here.
Absolutely. For example, her emphasis on self-improvement, knowing your worth, setting clear goals, and being proactive are all messages that can be applied to any area of life, not just relationships.
It's a great point.
All right, so we've explored a lot of the book's key concepts and advice in this first part of our deep dive.
Yeah.
And in the next part, we'll delve a little deeper into some of the more controversial aspects of Shira Seven's philosophy, like her views on seduction and emotional detachment. We'll also discuss the ethical implications of her strategies and whether her approach is truly empowering or potentially manipulative.
Sounds good.
So if you're intrigued by what you've heard so far, be sure to tune in for part 2 of our deep dive into Too Pretty to Pay Bills. We'll see you then.
See ya. Welcome back to Motivation Library, everyone. We're going to jump right back into Too Pretty to Pay Bills and, explore some of the more controversial aspects of Shira Seven's approach.
Yeah, you're right. This book definitely pushes some buttons. One of the most eyebrow-raising sections for me was her take on how men seduce women and how she suggests women use similar tactics.
She's very upfront about this, arguing that men often use their resources, both financial and emotional, to gain a woman's attention and affection.
Right.
It's like she's encouraging women to adopt a similar strategy, almost to the point of manipulation, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's a fine line for sure. She provides this detailed guide on how to tantalize men, delaying intimacy to increase her value.
Right.
And essentially drive up the price. It all feels very transactional.
It does. She even explicitly links this strategy to extracting financial benefits, suggesting that a man should be spending, a significant amount of money on a woman before she even considers intimacy. It's like she's saying, know your worth, ladies, and make him pay for it, literally.
That definitely raises some eyebrows. It makes you wonder, is this really that different from what we already see in mainstream dating culture?
Right.
I mean, how many times have we heard guys talk about playing the game or keeping their options open? Is Shira 7 just being more upfront about the power dynamics that already exist?
Yeah, that's a great point. We often hear advice telling women to play hard to get or, create an air of mystery.
Right.
It's all about strategic dating, but is it really about genuine connection?
It makes you think about the psychology behind it all. When she talks about pick-me chicks, lowering their standards for the sake of a relationship.
Right.
Is she tapping into some deeper insecurities that women face in a society that often judges their worth based on their relationship status?
Yeah, it's definitely a complex issue. And then there's the ethical question of using manipulation, even subtle manipulation, to get what you want.
Yeah.
Is it ever okay to deliberately withhold affection as a bargaining chip? What kind of impact does that have on the other person and ultimately on the relationship itself?
Those are tough questions, and I don't think there are any easy answers.
Yeah.
It really comes down to personal values and boundaries. What one person considers acceptable, another might find deeply troubling.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to remember that Shira 7 isn't claiming to have all the answers or presenting the only path to happiness. She even acknowledges that her approach might not be for everyone.
Right. It's more about offering a different perspective, one that might resonate with women who are disillusioned with traditional dating norms and seeking a more assertive approach to achieving their goals.
Right. Even if you don't agree with everything she says, it's valuable to at least consider her perspective and examine your own beliefs about relationships and power dynamics.
Okay, so we've tackled some of the more controversial aspects of the book.
Yeah.
Let's shift gears a bit and talk about this idea of emotional detachment.
Yeah.
Shira 7 seems to be advocating for a pretty cold and calculated approach to love and relationships.
That's true. She's very clear about the dangers of getting emotionally invested too quickly, even going as far as to suggest that women should have a backup plan.
Wow.
Another guy waiting in the wings, just in case things don't work out with the primary target.
It's all about protecting yourself and avoiding heartbreak. But is it really possible or even desirable to be completely emotionally detached in a romantic relationship?
Yeah.
If you're constantly guarding your heart and playing games, can you ever truly connect with someone on a deeper level?
That's the dilemma, isn't it?
Right.
It's about finding that balance between strategy and authenticity. On one hand, you want to protect yourself from being taken advantage of, but on the other hand, you don't want to sabotage the potential for genuine intimacy.
It's a tough call. And I think it's something that each individual has to grapple with on their own. There's no one-size-fits-all answer when it comes to matters of the heart.
Well said. I think that's one of the things that makes this book so fascinating. It forces us to confront these complex questions about love power and what it truly means to be empowered in a relationship.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground, but there's still so much to unpack. In the next part, we'll explore Shira 7's intriguing emphasis on visualization and manifestation, and we'll share our final thoughts on this wild ride of a book. Welcome back to Motivation Library, everyone. We're going to wrap up our deep dive into Too Pretty to Pay Bills.
Yeah.
We've explored a lot of fascinating and sometimes controversial ideas about relationships and finances and what it means to be empowered as a woman in today's world.
For sure. From dating with goals to pick-me chicks, from the age formula to, strategic seduction.
Right.
Shira Seven certainly doesn't shy away from bold claims and unconventional advice.
Definitely a lot to process.
Okay.
But before we sign off, I want to circle back to one of the more intriguing aspects of the book that we touched on earlier.
Okay.
Shira Seven's emphasis on vision and manifestation.
Right.
It seems to tie into the whole self-improvement and goal-setting aspect of her philosophy.
Absolutely. She's a big believer in the law of attraction.
Okay.
The idea that you can attract what you desire by focusing your thoughts and energy on it. Right.
And she applies this specifically to relationships, encouraging women to create a crystal clear vision of their ideal partner and the life they want to build together.
So it's not just about wishing for things to happen, right? It's about taking aligned action and putting in the effort to make those desires a reality.
Exactly. She provides exercises and prompts to help women define their vision and start taking practical steps to manifest it. It's about setting clear intentions and then backing them up with action.
I'm curious, though, do you really think someone can manifest a millionaire husband just by thinking about it?
Right.
It seems a bit too good to be true.
Well, whether you buy into the law of attraction or not, there's no denying the power of visualization and setting clear intentions. Even if you can't magically manifest a specific person, having a clear vision of what you want in a partner and a relationship can guide your decisions and help you attract people who align with those values.
Like having a roadmap for your love life.
Yeah.
Instead of just wandering aimlessly, you're being intentional about the kind of relationship you want to create. And that sense of purpose and direction can be incredibly empowering. It's about taking control of your destiny, whether it's in your love life, career, or any other area where you want to see positive change.
So even if you don't subscribe to the more outlandish aspects of her advice,
Yeah.
there's still a lot of value in Shira Seven's emphasis on self-awareness, goal setting, and taking proactive steps towards creating the life you desire.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the key takeaways from this book. It's a reminder that we have more power than we realize to shape our own reality. It's not about waiting for things to happen. It's about making them happen.
That's a great point to end on. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's your final verdict on Too Pretty to Pay Bills?
It's a complex and thought-provoking book, that's for sure. It challenges conventional wisdom and pushes us to examine our own beliefs about relationships, power dynamics, and what it means to be successful in a world that often sends mixed messages to women.
I agree. It's a book that will definitely spark some interesting conversations and maybe even inspire you to rethink your own approach to love and life.
And who knows, you might even find yourself manifesting some amazing things along the way.
That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Too Pretty to Pay Bills. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to Motivation Library for more insightful discussions on a wide range of topics.
And remember, whether you agree with Shira Seven's approach or not, the most important thing is to be true to yourself and create a life that brings you joy and fulfillment.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep those motivations high.